Flip, 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 Flip Weekly.
Hello and welcome. The Flip Weekly podcast, the best podcast in reselling. We go to thrift stores, we go to garage sales, we go to Facebook Marketplace, and we find things to resell for money. My name is Matt. I am your host, and we have a big episode to get through. When I was writing out the Flip Weekly newsletter earlier this week, I just could not stop writing. I got to like 4,000 words. You know, the Flip Weekly newsletter is usually around 2.5, maybe 3,000 words, and I just couldn't stop, man. 4,000 words. We just found so much throughout the week. We sold a lot too. You know, it was one of those really, really good weeks where we walk into a thrift store and we're just finding banger after banger. Like, I'm talking about board games worth like $250. You know, there was like DVDs, $100. There's rare toys for like $200 plus. And there's like clothes that I just completely forget about that are worth hundreds of dollars. And the thing is, like, we're not just finding these things, we're selling them too. Like, some of this stuff has sold within 24 to 48 hours. You know, it's with me for such a short amount of time that it doesn't even register in the old brain, right? You just, it's in, it's out, that's it. It's just like your bank account not even doubling, like tripling. What's after tripling? Quadrupling. It's just going up and up and up. And that's because we've just been killing it in the thrift stores, in the op shops, not even on Facebook Marketplace. You know, I like to find my $1,000 plus items on Facebook Marketplace. I don't think I've even done anything on Marketplace this week. Not a single pickup. Everything has just been thrift stores. It's just been op shops. It's been amazing. It really has been amazing, you know. Before I talk about that, talking about amazing, man, have you heard that story in the news at the moment of the teenager in America that found the Wilt Chamberlain, who is a basketball player, his warm-up jacket? He played for the Lakers, and this kid, this 19-year-old kid from the US, found like this really long, really old Lakers colored training jacket in the Goodwill bins for like $3, and he put it up online. Somebody from an auction house noticed it, from Sotheby's. Is that Sotheby's or Sotheby's? Silly name. Somebody there noticed it and was like, can you get in touch with us? The kid did, and then they put it up for auction. Like, this kid has just made so much money from going to those Goodwill bins. You know, we don't have those bins here in Australia, really. You know, there's a couple of places I can think of that do by the kilo, but I genuinely think those items are like bought in pallets. Like, it's brought in from somewhere else that isn't donated. It may even be from the US, and I think it's all been looked through. You know, I think it's curated. Whereas my understanding of the Goodwill bins is that everything gets dumped in these bins and it's all unsorted. You know, the staff don't go through it. It's just people lining up to dig through bins for, like, you know, some of the bins have clothes, some of them have toys, some of them have, you know, just a mishmash of different items. And this kid found this training jacket. Somebody else threw it back in the pile, and this kid found it and he was like, you know what, this looks like it was worn by a basketball player. You know, basketball players, they're tall. This thing was really long. And he like did the measurements and he found out that, you know, this is how long Wilt Chamberlain's arms are. This is his torso. And he matched it all up, and he realized like this was worn by him during the NBA finals, like in the finals when he's warming up before he goes on the court, you know, back in the 70s. And he paid $3 for this bloody thing. Sotheby's got in touch. It's sold. And it sold on Monday, you know, just this past Monday, for $89,000. That's US dollars too. That has to be like over 100,000 Australian dollars that this kid has just turned into $100,000. You know, imagine if I was coming to you with a brand new podcast episode just saying, yeah, I bought something for $3 and it's just sold for like $1.2 million. This kid has just gotten insanely lucky, but also the knowledge to buy this, take it home and just take a punt on it, right? Like, he took a gamble. It could have just been worthless. right? It could have just been like an old bit of rags with this Wilt Chamberlain's name on the back. But no, he took a punt. Like, I am so happy for this kid. But the thing is, it just reminded me of the Australian market, where we have sports players. You know that I find my jerseys. They're worn by these players. We're not getting like $89,000 for them. Like, I've sold one this week. It was player issued to a dude that played for the Sydney Swans. It sold for like $200. You know, like, it's sort of a bummer about the Australian market, because if we're finding player issue Australian sports, if we're in America, are we going to be finding, you know, like LeBron James's jersey in a Goodwill? The market here is so small compared to over there. It just makes me a bit sad that even if we found, like, who is the most famous Australian athlete of all time, you know, even in basketball, it'd probably be Andrew Gaze. If I found an Andrew Gaze worn jersey, it'd probably sell for like maybe $1,000, maybe. To try and get $100,000 from a piece of clothing, I don't think you could get that. Like, I don't know if something like that has ever sold before. I'm sure it has. You know, if you found the dress that Princess Diana was wearing when she got killed, you know, I'm sure that would sell for $100,000. It'd be covered in blood. You'd have to do some sort of DNA matching, but it's sort of a bummer that we can't find that sort of stuff. I was reading the article about this kid, 19-year-old kid. The highest flip that he ever had before was for $250 for a Nirvana t-shirt. It just shows that, like, there's a huge gap between what you regularly find and these one-off sales. So this kid's going to be chasing this feeling for the rest of his life, which is a bummer, man. Like, if you're flipped something for $100,000, you're just thinking like, okay, I need to replicate that success. It usually happens when you come into a windfall, you do something, you make some money, you want to replicate it. But you can't really do that with thrifting, right? Like, if you have a $10,000 thrifting flip, the odds of you doing that again, if it was like an extremely rare item, very, very low. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out and give this kid massive props for like taking the gamble on this Lakers training jersey, warm-up jersey, sorry, being able to make $90,000, like, bloody hell. Oh, and I also wanted to talk about another article that I read this week before we talk about what we bought, what we sold. And it was a article on Yahoo, right? Like, I'm not reading Yahoo News every single day. I've talked more about Yahoo News than any other news platform. It just came across my feed, right? And I've talked about Vinnie's before, haven't I? I've called them out multiple times. They had, you know, the Harry Potter books in the glass cabinet asking $1,000 for the Deathly Hallows. It was just ridiculous. There was one article this week that I just thought, you know, I think we need to take it a bit more easy on Vinnie's, right? Somebody posted a photo of a Lacoste t-shirt, a Lacoste polo. It had a hole in it, right? Vinnie's was asking $16. It's a whole Yahoo News article that prompted a response from somebody with Vinnie's being like, look, our volunteers, our staff, they looked over it. They must have missed it. It was just a mistake. But they had to go into like apology mode, and then they had to defend all of their pricing because of it. I just think it's a bit much, right? Like, I've bought things from op shops before and I've missed stains, I've missed holes, I've missed like damage to them, because you think you're doing a good look over, right? And then you just get it home and there's something wrong with it. I'm sure we've all done that. And then you put on the fact that you're in the back, probably in a dimly lit room. Like, I'm imagining a sorting room of an op shop to be like the most depressing place, right? Just junk everywhere. You're like in a hoarder's house. The lights are low. There's probably smoke in the air. Everyone's chain smoking out the back. And you're going through all of these donations. You know, people aren't donating their best stuff. And then you see this shirt, you see Lacoste, you see the tag, you probably checking it against a list of brands out the back, $16, boom, put it out, and that's it, right? And somebody's seen this hole, and it's a whole article about it. Just give them a break. Really, it's very easy to ignore it. Or to just say to somebody there, like, this has a hole. Do you think like I could either get it cheaper, or do you want to like take it out behind the barn, right? I don't think it warrants needing to make it a conversation about op shop quality. It's just somebody out the back has missed a hole in a shirt. And then, I don't know, if you're thinking like, Matt, but you've said this about Vinnie's before, it became a whole article, it became a whole video. That was because they looked at these Harry Potter books, made the determination that they thought it was worth $1,000 when it really wasn't. It wasn't missed. It wasn't missed. They had spent time looking it up. They got their information wrong. Okay? As them trying to gouge the price. This simple hole in the shirt, don't think is that big of a deal. So I reckon, let's just cool it a bit with hating on Vinnie's, hating on op shops, hating on the quality. If you see a hole in a shirt, just tell someone there. You don't have to really make a whole fuss about it. Oh, I just saw that we have a poll at the bottom of this article. What do you think of the quality of op shop goods? There's 1,000 votes so far. The options are: it's generally pretty good, seems to have deteriorated, no staff, so damaged goods slip through. I don't really understand how there can be no staff, so damaged goods slip through. They would slip through because they have staff. How would items get out if they don't have staff? I'm going to say it's generally pretty good, because if we're finding $100 items every single time we go there, it's generally pretty good. So let's see let's vote in this poll, see what everyone says. 74% say seems to have deteriorated. My God, I had trouble. Deteriorated. Right. Generally pretty good, only got 17%. Anyway, let's move on from these articles and let's talk about what we found this week. All right, what did I buy this week? What did I buy? What does your boy know about bags? What do you think I know about bags? I know that Coach is expensive. I know that Billabong was the most popular at school, right? I remember rocking a Golo quicksand bag. It was probably the moment where I first became aware of brands. I think I might have talked about this before, where I had a quicksand bag. Somebody came up and was like, "What brand is your bag?" And I thought, what a weird question. And they looked at my bag and they were like, "Oh, quicksand." I thought, is that bad? Why is this bad? Who are these people? I don't know you. It's a very weird thing to come up and ask a random stranger. But here's the thing. I found a bag in a thrift store that, I mean, if you follow Flip Weekly on social media, you'll know what happened with this thing. I found a good bag, man. Usually if you don't know about a category, you should stay out of it, right? But the only way to learn more is to dive right in. I mean, I didn't learn anything, but maybe you will, because I spotted in a Savers a bag for $5.99. And the reason why I went over to it was because it had the PlayStation 5 logo on the front of it. This thing was like a half backpack, half carry bag hybrid, all white, and it appeared to be brand new. Now I felt it, I picked it up. Usually what you do, the material, high quality. The zippers on the outer pockets of these things, they were chunky and they moved very freely up and down. And then I looked inside, it looked spotless, right? It looked really, really good. Now the thing is, I couldn't find any active or sold listings on eBay. All I could find were aftermarket bags. And these bags, they're not official, they're not licensed. They sell for $20 to $30. And people that, collect these sort of things, they don't really want an aftermarket bag unless they just want to transport their PlayStation from point A to point B, whatever. But here's the thing. I stuck my fat head into the compartment, right? And I found a maker's mark. What I found inside of this bag made it worth a lot of money. Now, it wasn't the material inside the bag. It was the tag. And what the tag said was not for sale. And then it said on the other tag, produced by RDP Limited for SIEE. Now, it doesn't take a genius to work out what SIEE means. It means Sony Interactive Entertainment Europe, the people that make the PlayStation. So you combine that with the fact it's not for sale, it's not available anywhere, it's not in your retail stores. This, I think, is going to be a really, really good find. So what we ended up having was a official PlayStation 5 promo item. Now, I did some research online and it lent towards that this backpack was given exclusively to Sony employees. There was a Reddit thread about it. Sony employees got this bag, but it was also distributed to like the media, to influencers. It was given away at some events. Basically, this thing is a very, very rare backpack. Now, you might be thinking, Matt, what's the big deal? People can just buy those aftermarket bags. No one notices. No one cares. Well, tell that to young Matt, right? Like, I thought I could get away with that quicksand bag instead of the cooler Quicksilver. But people do care about those things. People do notice. Like those two that came up and made me aware of brands, made me self-conscious about my bag. Thank you very much. Now, it might sound insane. I mean, it wouldn't sound insane if you follow Flip Weekly on social media, because again, you would know what happened. But I listed this $6 bag up on eBay for $250. And I listed it on Marketplace as well for $150. Is that not just ridiculous? You know, this isn't a Coach bag. This isn't another one of those fancy brands that, you know, husbands and boyfriends are buying for their wives and girlfriends. This is just a regular, bag, right? It just has some PlayStation 5 logos on it and it was not for sale. $250 on eBay, $150 on Marketplace. I would never spend that much money on a bag. I would force my parents to when I was a kid. Not now, no thanks. But get this, if you thought that bag was insane, just wait until I tell you about this next item that I found, because I was in Vinnie's and I was near the media section. I saw what appeared to be like an old harness racing record just leaning up against the shelf, right? I thought that was a bit odd. You know, what could it be? You know, race calls from famous events, you know, harness racing. It's not the Melbourne Cup. You can't have a record of all the Melbourne Cups, just, you know, the race callers on a record. That would be weird, right? So I went over to it and curiosity, it just got the better of me, right? I looked at it. I realized it wasn't flat like a record. It was thicker. It was like a board game. So I could see a $20 price tag on it. And the full name of this thing was called Homestretch Harness Racing. And I could see it was from 1965, long before I was born, long before my mum was born. Mum was born in 67. This thing is old and it's in really, really good condition. Now, before I bothered to open it up or, you know, to go to the counter and ask the staff if I could open it up, you know, when you see those stickers on items, I took a picture of it. I opened up Google Lens, and besides like the default AI description, I couldn't see much about this game. Like the top two results weren't from eBay. One was from Board Game Geek, which is like a reference website for tabletop games. The other was for an independent toy store website that had this game for sale, but it was currently out of stock. Now, this excites me because it's old and there's no active or sold listings on eBay. I mean, I'd get more excited if there were sold listings, but there's no trace of this on eBay. So let's pick it up for 20 bucks, but first we open it. I open it in the thrift store. I can see it's in very good condition, almost as if it hasn't been played with, and everything appears to be there. I'm going to do this with all board games that I buy from now on. I need to open it. I need to see if it looks complete. Now, on a quick side note, I might be exposing just how much of a degenerate I am, but this is a game I would totally play. I would really play this game. I remember going to the TAB for the very first time when I was a kid. When I was still in primary school, I went with my friend and his dad, and we won what felt like a boatload of money at the time. And I went home to my family with like pockets full of change, pockets full of money, just literally jingling. And I would never forget it because my parents were like, why do you have so much money? And, you know, just picture like 10-year-old Matt just being like, oh yeah, I was down at the tab. I'll never forget the look on my parents' face when I said I was just hanging out at the TAB, just betting on horses all afternoon. And then I think my parents called my friend's parents and were like, you do not take a 10-year-old kid to the TAB to gamble on horses. I don't know what the conversation was, how it went, but I must have done okay if I came home with money. I don't think I had any money to start with, so I made some money. But that was my first introduction to, I guess, gambling, and it's plagued me ever since. I'm laughing about it now, but maybe I'm just connecting the dots that this is where it all started. I've lost a lot of money gambling. Maybe, this is because I was indoctrinated in a very young age. I've been chasing that 10-year-old TAB thrill since then. But luckily for me, now in 2026, I don't know anybody who doesn't consider horse racing immoral, so I have nobody to play it with, so I'm not going to play it. Anyway, I took a look at the instructions. Each player, everyone that plays this game, they're represented by a horse. They chuck the horse on the board. You take turns rolling a dice and you pick up cards, and those cards dictate whether your horse, takes the lead or runs out of gas or makes a dash to the finish line last minute. So to me, it sounds like a fun game, something I'd enjoy. To everyone else that finds it immoral, it would not be a fun afternoon, especially all the jokes that people like to make about, last time I picked a horse in the Melbourne Cup, it broke its leg and died. How many times you hear that same joke? Oh my God. So without any data on eBay, I had to go to WorthPoint, and I don't have an active subscription for WorthPoint, but all I'm wanting to do is see if there's any sort of sold data, like anything at all. And what I found on WorthPoint, 113 results. I can see a lot of sales on WorthPoint. So now I jump over to the alternative, the free alternative that doesn't have as much data, avaluer.net. I can see results on avaluer.net. Sales, one in 2020 for $129.99 USD, which is about 185 Australian dollars. Given that sale, man, it was 6 years ago. We have some decisions to make. We have some questions we need to answer. First, do people still care about this game? Do we match that last sale price? Or do we increase it given the fact it's rare? We can't exactly tap into the brains of all the board game enthusiasts. So here's what I do. The game is complete. It's in good condition. There's none on the market. The independent toy store that I mentioned earlier had the game listed and sold for 145 USD, which equals 207 Australian dollars. So to me, this screams aim high, see what happens. It's only going to take one buyer, one highly motivated buyer for this very old game to sell. So I've listed this $20 Vinnie's board game up for sale on eBay for $249.95. And look, if it's priced too high, that's fine. I can try and make some friends. I can try and get some degenerates around to play this game in the meantime. That's what we can do with our stock, right? Buy stuff that you like so that if nobody buys it, at least you can use it. But speaking of making friends, not so much degenerate friends. Speaking of making friends, I might have found one in Vinnie's this week. It was $4. What it was, man, it was a bust of Sonny from Will Smith's I, Robot. Now this thing, it was staring me directly in the eyes when I was flicking through the shirts. And the first thing that I did when I saw this thing was I picked it up. I picked this bust up, this statue up, right? It's just from the shoulders up, probably about, 25, 30 centimeters tall. I could immediately feel some weight. Now that's a good sign when it comes to this. It looked like cheap plastic, but you pick it up, feels nice. If you want to see a photo, go to flipweekly.com. But if you have seen the movie I, Robot, it's the robot, the main robot from that movie. Look, I swung the head around of this thing. I saw the $4 sticker on the back, and then the back compartment fell off. I thought, oh, I broke it. No, it was meant to come off because it exposes the robot's brain, like the brain compartment of the robot. Maybe not the brain, because robots don't have brains, right? They have electrical components. And then I could see on the bottom of it that there was a little plaque, a little metallic plaque, and it read limited 578 of 3,000. Now this to me, it's an obvious indicator that this thing had a limited run, a limited edition run. And then I wanted to spot the maker's mark. So I turned this head upside down, and then on the bottom I could see an on and off switch, along with the name Pop Box Collectibles. Now Google Lens wasn't turning up any comps, at least no exact comps. Apparently there was like a Sonny bust made to store Blu-rays and DVDs in the back of this thing's head. It wasn't that, but that looked pretty cool. But with the feeling that somebody out there, somebody would want this for a decent price. I took it with me, and I also at this point didn't know what that on-off switch did. Who knows what it can do, like read minds, or as the Vinny's checkout assistant said, maybe it recites the 3 laws of, what was it? 3 laws of robotics. I just had to awkwardly laugh at that comment. So I get it home, I hit the forums, I hit those online communities like Reddit, trying to figure out more about this thing, work out a price. But as the plaque suggested, only 3,000 of these busts were made back in 2006. And the battery compartment, it powered the back of Sonny's head. The brain inside of his head, I guess. It shines bright blue, just like it does in the movie. Now, on those community forums, collectors at the time, they said that they were a bit annoyed that the light on the back didn't transfer through like Sonny's eyes out the front. But it didn't really matter because the overall sentiment at the time said that this replica, which was it wasn't to scale, it wasn't like a 1:1 scale, it wasn't a full-size head, it was like 1:2, so half the size of Sonny's head. It was well made, and the original purchase price back then, from 2004 or whatever it was $140 US. Now, all I could find on eBay after I got the right search terms was 1 active, 1 sold. Now, the 1 active was brand new. Well, I mean, it wasn't brand new, it had its original box, pre-owned, and they were asking for $473. There was one that had sold that was listed as brand new for $220. And the thing is, like, I know a lot of collectors love to buy these busts, these statue things of movie characters, so I decided to list him up on eBay for $300, Facebook Marketplace for $200, and look, I think he looks pretty cool. He presents well. I think it's going to sell quickly. So we have that, a potential $4 into $300 or $4 into $200. When it comes to like using Google Lens, we have had a lot of trouble with it this week. Like, Google Lens was showing so much conflicting information when it came to this next item. It was so hard to identify. So I was in Savers, right? And I saw this Transformers action figure on the toy shelf. You know, he caught my eye because he didn't have the same shine that the cheap plastic toys have. He looked a lot more detailed, right? More intricacy in his movements, in his, in whatever he was made out of. So like what I did with Sonny, I picked him up and I could tell that he had some weight. Now this is a good sign. Well-made stuff is always going to be heavy. I check out the Savers price tag, they want $11.99. Now I start to look him over, and I don't know much about Transformers. I've seen the original movie with Shia LaBeouf. This thing looked like Optimus Prime, the main character, like the main Transformer dude. And the detail, when I looked closer at it, it was off the charts, man. I thought, this is no way a $12 figure. Like, the weight alone, it has to be a mix of plastic and metal. You know, I gave it another look over, and from what I can tell, he looked to be intact. I didn't see anything wrong with him, because you know what we're like. If Savers put this out on the floor and not behind the counter, something has to be wrong with it, right? But I can't spot a single issue. I really can't. I'm thinking somebody out the back saw Transformers, saw a kid's toy, just put him straight out like that. No second guessing, no examination of the materials or the quality. But, oh well, it's a positive for us, right? Now this thing, about 30 centimeters tall, felt like about a kilo. Every single time I put him through Google Lens, it came up with the same $100 new in box plastic Optimus Prime. And don't get me wrong, it looked virtually exactly the same. I mean, they're all Optimus Prime. They all have the same molds, the same look, the same, head, shoulders, knees, and toes. But I wasn't convinced it was that one, because the metallic parts of the one that I was holding were so much shinier than what was in that box. And I didn't think he'd be sold in like your standard action figure hang tag box, right? Like, I thought he would have to come in, I don't know, like a bigger box. Right, so I went back and forth with Google search results. I checked eBay. I even consulted with our robot friends at ChatGPT, and I was eventually able to figure out exactly what it was. And this is a Transformers Legendary Toys LT02 Masterpiece. Now, if that confuses you, the name goes on as the MPM-04. I don't know what any of that means. It confuses me when I see things like this. Matt confused. Matt wants to get out of this scenario. But I type those combination of, I'm guessing, words into eBay search results, and I can see sold listings of this thing for like $400. But this thing, made by the company Legendary Toys, and when I look up Legendary Toys, from what I've been able to work out, they get the original molds from Transformers, and then they improve upon them. For example, this figure, Optimus Prime, they added the metallic paint onto the grey portions of his suit. They switched the tires from plastic to rubber. They just genuinely improved upon the finish of this thing. So what is important when you're out there in the wild? You want to be keeping your eye out for the difference between like your standard $10 plastic toy and your highly detailed heavy collector's item, because this $11.99 Transformer is now up on eBay for $249.95. And look, I would have listed this up for higher, except I could not be transforming him into the truck. I've done these Transformer toys before. I barely have 2 brain cells to rub together. I can't do transforming toys. It just makes me frustrated. You put one single problem in front of me, turn this toy into a truck. I just say, no, I'm not doing it. Why not? I don't want to get angry. I don't want to get frustrated. I don't want to break this toy. So in the description, I've literally said, I have not tested the transforming ability of this toy. Maybe that's why nobody has bought it yet, but it's got a ton of views. Okay. So we get that from Savers, and then we go over into the books. And we have found a series of hardcovers that look to be worth very, very good money. Now, it's a series called The Keepers of the Maser. Now, Maser is spelled M-A-S-E-R. Maybe it's Maser. But what this is, it's like this fantasy sci-fi graphic novel series. It was created by this Italian artist. Now, let me try this. His name, Massimiliano Frazzata. Now, I'm going to say his name again, and it's going to sound different. Massimiliano Frazzata. There's 7 volumes in this series. Each of them were published between 1997 and 2007. Savers had them priced at $6.99 each. I don't know anything about them, but I looked them up. The general synopsis is this. On the planet Colony, a crazy old man, a girl with a dark past, and a young man with no future set off in search of their origins among machines and forgotten populations on their way to a mysterious tower. Man, we're getting some robotic AI vibes in this issue, aren't we, in this podcast? So they're all, the larger hardcovers. They're about 30 by 20 centimeters, so they're quite big. Each of these books, they had about 46 pages. Every single page, high quality illustrations. They're sort of the size of like your Tintins, right? Like your full-size Tintins, your old Asterix. It's that size. And anytime I see a series like this on the shelf and it's hardcover, it's going to get my attention. So I searched up on eBay The Keepers of the Maser 1-7. All I can see on eBay is an auction in the US. It was for all 7 books plus 1 extra, and the starting bid of that auction was $753. I was initially intrigued, but that got my attention. So these were $6.99 each, an upfront cost of $48.93. So we're paying $50. It's a lot of money in a thrift store, right? So I check out the sold listings. How do they stack up? They're pretty good in terms of sale price. They're only okay for quantity. We have individual volumes selling in the $50 range. I'm looking at 2 here, 55, 67. And then there was a bundle of 1, 2, 3, and 4 that sold for $180. So we only had that one active listing for all 7 volumes, and that was $750. We don't have sold listings for all 7. I've decided to list them up on eBay for $349.95. And you might be thinking, you're not matching the auction. Why is that? I'm cutting it in half, because if I had more sold data to back up a $700 listing price, or if I could see chatter on social media saying like, this book is so rare, I really want it, I would have so much more confidence to list this up for $700. I just don't have that. So that is missing, but we are still trying to turn these books that cost $50 into $350. 50 into 350. I mean, can't go wrong with that, right? That's pretty damn good. Back into Vinnie's. We've had a busy week. Forget about the signed books. I've talked about signed books a million times before. About signed DVDs. I found a signed DVD. Very rare to come across a signed DVD, right? I was in Vinnie's and I was just, doing my regular eye scanning across the shelves. I saw Chris Lilly's Angry Boys. It was a DVD that was thicker than usual. There was something that was attached to the back, and it turned out to be these Angry Boys temporary tattoos. It was inside of a sleeve, just like sticky tape to the back of this DVD. And when I pulled it out and I saw those tattoos and I turned it over, I could see on the front that the DVD was signed by Chris Lilly, like the actual insert thing. Well, that's pretty cool. This is a popular show, I think. I've never seen it. And I looked up this DVD. It's like the Angry Boys only went for one season, so technically it's the complete series of Angry Boys. You can sell it for like $10 to $15, right? But you add on these temporary tattoos, somebody has gotten $50 before. And then we add on the fact that we have the insert signed by Chris Lilly. That's $100 right there. Now, I wouldn't say Chris Lilly is extremely popular or that he has like a cult following. He's still a pretty popular entertainer, right? And like I said, I'm sort of embarrassed to admit I haven't seen any of his work. But for all intents and purposes, I've only ever heard positive things about the guy. So that will be a $5 into $100 sale if that goes ahead. I think it will. I mean, Chris Lilly, there's not many signatures. You add on the tattoos. I think it's going to sell. Before the end of the year, which, by the way, is coming up very, very quickly. But anyway, you'll remember a few, maybe weeks, months back, there's a couple of the mainstream items that I pick up, but they have to be a different variant and they have to be expensive, right? Like one of those were the Boppets. We bought and sold some weird Boppets in the past. I'm always looking out for the next IP that's teamed up with them. Another one of those IPs is Monopoly. I see Monopoly in thrift stores every single week. I'm always going to leave them behind unless it's one I've never seen before and it can fetch upwards of $100. Now, I found one in Savers for $15. It's not the $500 one, which is the Franklin Mint Monopoly, but this one is worth buying if you see it because we have Monopoly Fallout Collector's Edition. Fallout, of course, a video game, very popular, and this being the collector's edition, big money. Well, I mean, okay money compared to everything else. Like any board game in the thrift store, if it's not brand new and sealed, you're taking a gamble. You have to open it up and check to see if the pieces are there, or at least guess, right? Now, this is one of those times where I roll up my sleeves, I get into the trenches. This isn't something I usually do at the thrift stores, and that is put in work. I kneel down, I spend my 30 seconds opening this thing up, I gloss over the pieces, and I'm like, yeah, looks complete enough for me. Now, there's not a single active listing, brand new or pre-owned within Australia. It's sort of surprising to me because, Fallout's such a popular IP, and there's a television show made about it now, which is supposedly pretty good. So once I finish looking it over, and I look at the eBay sold data, the sold data is telling me to buy this because I'm looking at pre-owned in the US, $102, $94. Hell yes, I'm buying this. So I take it home. I confirm every single piece is there and accounted for. This is very, very important because we've learned in the past, you want every single token. You want the game board to be in good condition. And from there, the importance of the pieces, it's not that big of a deal if you're missing like a single, $10 note or $1 note, right? So I've listed this find that cost me $14.99 on eBay for $119.95, 15 into 120. Now, as I'm huddled in the corner of Savers, getting sweaty because I'm putting in all this work, I spot something else that could be valuable. Now, I've described this before as the most boring category, but we have a factory sealed puzzle. It's 1,000 pieces, which is my nightmare. Savers wanted $8 for it. I'd usually leave it behind if it wasn't for the fact the image was of some badass dinosaurs, because what we have here is a 1994 Dinotopia puzzle by the legendary James Gurney. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's because it's based on the Dinotopia book series that a lot of us have seen in libraries back in the late 90s, early 2000s, probably in thrift stores to this day. People have been trying to cash in on this franchise for decades, right? They had a mini series, they had some animated films, I think they had some video games too. Now, I know what you're thinking, if you're a dinosaur fan, what are you going to love? Right? No. You're not going to love like a dinosaur action adventure park or, a roaring interactive dinosaur action figure. You're not going to love like a Jurassic Park blockbuster film. You're going to love a cardboard puzzle, a static puzzle that doesn't move. Not 100 pieces, not even 500, 1,000 pieces of this. Now, I can see sold comps within Australia. They're about, one of them here, $69.60 plus $20 postage, which is equal to like $90. There's another one that's about $70, but they're all pre-owned. One of them was even saying as found, which doesn't give me much hope that all the pieces are going to be there. So I'm going to mark it up to $100. It's factory sealed, but not everything can be marked up to $100. You can't just buy something, see a comp of $69 and be like, okay, $100. There's a few factors involved here, which is why I'm marking it up to $100. One, very few active listings. There's only 58 in the world of Dinotopia puzzles, and they're all of different designs. Number two, the sold listings. They indicate that people are going to spend at least $90 on a puzzle when it's in as found condition. That means the pieces have not been counted. There's probably going to be missing pieces, and people are still willing to spend $90 on this thing. Number three, this thing's factory sealed. And factory sealed in a niche like this, where people value completeness, that's incredibly important. And number four, not a single active listing for this variant of the Dinotopia puzzle series. So I've listed this $7.99 puzzle find up on eBay for $100. Oh, and by the way, I found another Monopoly this week that is high value with not a single available on eBay Australia. I picked it up for $6. It was the Steven Universe Monopoly from 2016. This is based on a television show that ran for 5 seasons. The sold listings are amazing. Like, this thing has sold for $172 in the UK. 100% complete, by the way. I spent $6. The cheapest you can get it here in Australia shipped is $130. I've listed up for $120, 6 into 120. I'm getting very lucky with these Monopoly finds. I just hope that they sell, because otherwise I'll have a couple of spare Monopolies here and no friends to play them with, right? Like, I'm sure the people that find horse racing immoral probably have something to say about owning all the properties in Australia too. Sort of immoral as well. Anyway, let's just move on because we're moving on from puzzles and bags and DVDs. They're not fun, right? You know what's more fun? Clothing. Know what you're thinking. But look, it's funny. It must have been a few months back now. Remember, I made a connection with a dude that I thought was desperate for money. I think that's putting it nicely. He had a couple of Sydney Swans player issued jerseys, and I bought a few things, and safe to say we ran into a few problems with each other, but eventually it's all squared out, right? Well, he got in touch with me again this week, and surprise, it was to ask for money. Now, I ignored his first message because it was at 6 a.m, right? I couldn't be bothered, replying to it because he told me that he had another jersey. He wanted to sell it, same price, $50. I was just thinking, like, I can't be bothered to drive out to get this jersey, pay $50, pain in the ass. But then he hit me with the triple question marks an hour later. It's like 7 a.m. He's like, why aren't you answering me? I thought, screw it. I opened his message. I could see the jersey. I could see the photos. He sent through a couple. And it wasn't from the VFL, which is like the league underneath the AFL. It was actually from the AFL, the big boys. These jerseys can sell for a lot of money, hundreds, maybe even thousands if it's the right player. This was the number 29. It had the GPS pouch. And I was able to pinpoint that this jersey belonged to a player called Joel Hamling for the Sydney Swans. It was the Pride jersey from 2025. So I say, yes, I'm going to buy it. He offered it to me for $50. I accept the price. But the thing is, like, I still can't be bothered to drive out to get this. If you had a couple of them, yeah. But for one, like, I really can't be bothered. So I asked him if I threw in like $10, knowing that this guy is seemingly always desperate for money. I said, for $10, can you put it in the post, or, and I was being a bit cheeky here, deliver it to my house? The only reason I said that is because he's done it before. He's weirdly done it before, man. And I've met him at, I won't say the suburb, but the suburb's like 20 minutes away. And I don't think he lives there. I think he lives like 40 minutes away, right? But he replies to me, he's like, yeah, that's fine. I'll drop it off. So I transferred him $60 to his nominated bank account. I have to highlight nominated because we've had problems before where he didn't receive the money instantly. And it was like this whole thing, right? It was just a whole thing between us where I then had to transfer him money to a different account, and he had to transfer me back the money like a few days later once it cleared. And yeah, it was it was not good. You know, the first time that I met him, I was wearing my Insta360. So I call it my body cam, and I had to, you know, when he didn't send me back the money, I had to sort of show him that, like, I have his face. And he thought that was very, very weird. I have to agree, it was very, very weird. I haven't done anything with the footage. I just had to show the guy, like, you know, I know who you are. Like, I have a video of us exchanging money, and it doesn't look good. And he's probably not supposed to be selling these jerseys to me, but whatever. We're doing okay now. So he gave that to me. I paid the $60. These things go for hundreds, man. Like, I'm not even worried about it selling. Well, I'm saying this as if I hadn't already sold it. I got this thing on Tuesday. He sent me the photos on Monday. I immediately hit up a guy that has bought these player issued jerseys from me before. I had this thing sold before I even got it. I sold it for $200. So it was just like a very quick, easy flip from 60 into 200 before I'd even got the thing. And it was a bit risky because this guy, I mean, he's the most reliable person. And I know that doesn't make any sort of sense. I knew he was going to come through, but I just didn't, I probably shouldn't have done it, right? You know, selling something before I even got in possession of it. But it doesn't matter. He did drop it off and everything was fine. Now, there's a couple of other bits of clothing that I've picked up throughout the week that you can check out on flipweekly.com. And I'm not going to go into detail, but these things are worth over $100 each. You know, like there's another jersey that is like a West Tigers players jersey that's 150 plus. There's like long sleeve polos that are listed up for $150, like vintage stuff. It's just, we just got so lucky, and honestly, I'm looking at them now. Every single one of these is listed up for at least $100. And they just go up from there, but I just don't want to talk about them because it's just boring clothing, right? Clothing's boring. I find clothing boring. No, I don't. Why did I say that? I don't find clothing boring. I find the jerseys fun. That's why I get the jerseys, and they sell quickly. But talking about clothing is sort of boring to me. That's what I should have said. But yeah, that's basically everything that I bought for the week. So we should just get straight into what I sold. All right, what did we sell? Now, first thing, I was at Savers the other day, right? They had these Nintendo 64 cartridges in the display case. There was like 30 of them, right? And I asked to take a look at them. They brought them out. I looked through every single one of them, and every single one was like at eBay prices or above eBay prices. Like, I'm talking Mario Kart for $60. Like, you can buy it on eBay right now for $50 free post. And yet they put that much effort into comping up these games, and they somehow made this item slip through the cracks. I mean, they didn't make it slip through the cracks, it slipped through the cracks. I don't know how. It's not like it didn't have a single brand or maker's mark on it. We have sold the 2025 Lucasfilm Crew Gift. This was the puzzle that I totally didn't attempt to put together and give up on. I paid $4.49. It has sold on eBay for $249.95. Basically $5 into $250. Now, if you look at the photos of this thing, or go onto Flip Weekly's social media, you'll see a video. There are so many chances that savers had to look this thing up. You know, it said Lucasfilm, the company behind Star Wars. It was heavy. It was solid brass. Think of all the items in savers if it's solid brass, how much they would charge for it. It had the brand name Craig Hill on it. And if you just Google Craig Hill, you will see that it's a company that makes high quality mechanical puzzles, and each one of them sells for like $100 plus. And it made me think, like, do they have different people out the back that handle puzzles and handle, you know, brass ornaments? Like, I honestly don't understand their pricing sometimes. Like, I get it's different people all the time that are doing these, but it's so confusing, right? Like, I stopped trying to make sense of it. So we sold that. It was $5 into $250. It was just over 30 days the sell-through rate. And that's the thing with, you know, items that are crew related to popular movies. You know, it's t-shirts, hats, any sort of merchandise. If it's related to the popular movie, if it's, you know, a crew gift, anything crew, you might score a big payday like this. 5 into 250. Now, the next thing that sold, it sold quickly. It sold in less than 24 hours. We have sold the PlayStation 5 backpack that we found in Savers for $6. It sold for $150 via Facebook Marketplace. We had just under 250 clicks. We had 5 saves, and it's out the door. You know, I listed it up at about 7 p.m. and by 9 a.m. the next morning, somebody had claimed it. Now, I don't know what the couple are going to do with it. You know, the couple arrived. I met them at the train station, and they were both very interested in it. You know, they were like, we can't find it on the website. I'm like, no, it's a promo item. You're not going to find it anywhere. It's rare. They asked if I worked at Sony. I said no. They looked confused. I have to assume that they're going to display this. I don't think they're going to use it, right? Like, I was about to say, nobody spends $150 on a bag and then uses it. And then virtually every kid in high school did that with their Billabong or Quicksilver bags, you know? Plus, you know, pretty much every woman that buys a bag in 2026, it's going to cost more than $150. I guess that's my basis for bags, is that, you know, nobody's going to spend over $150 on a bag and use it, right? I feel very, very out of touch. Anyway, moving on, and our friendship, you know, my attempt to make some friends, my attempt to befriend a robot didn't last. A friendship lasted about as long as a Kardashian marriage, because Sunny, the $4 bust that we picked up in Vinny's, has sold via Facebook Marketplace for $200. This was a 48-hour flip via Facebook Marketplace, $4 into $200. There's really not much to say about this item except the fact that our intuition for picking up items that we think will sell fast was pretty spot on for this. So after selling it, I decided to go ahead and re-watch the movie. It's the first time I've seen it in years. I remember seeing it in the theater and then coming out and just repeating that Will Smith joke where somebody tells him an obvious lie and he sneezes and he's like, sorry, I'm allergic to bull. So I remember doing that constantly around my dad, and he's like, if you do that one more time, you know, he wasn't happy. You know, when parents had threats, I don't know if everyone had this, very popular threat in my household was, you know, if you don't stop doing X, I'm going to put your head through the wall. It's a bit up. It's a bit messed up, right? It applied to everything too. If you don't eat your dinner, if you don't eat your overcooked sausages that I baked in the oven, I'm going to put your head through the wall. If you guys don't be quiet, I'm going to put you and your friend's head through the wall. What are you doing? So yeah, I rewatched it. I rewatched the film. I jotted down some notes too. I don't know why. I just thought I'd tell you a couple of things that I noticed in this movie. I literally wrote them down. So things that I noticed about this movie. First of all, I found it unrealistic that the robots in this movie are just helpful. You know, they're helping humans. They're helping humanity. Whereas in reality, they're just taking people's jobs and leaving people poor and hungry and impoverished. Right? Second thing, the founder of this robotics company, he's a billionaire and he's supposedly a nice guy, a good guy. I just don't believe it. I don't believe an American billionaire is a nice guy. I'm sorry. Third thing, Will Smith, don't like him. He goes up onto the stage, slaps Chris Rock. He just comes across so goddamn cocky in this movie. I don't like it. Number 4, this film is based in 2035, and based on the fact that we're now in 2026, their version of 2035 looks nothing like what it's going to be. I think us humans have let down the director of iRobot. The fact there's not going to be anything like that futuristic interpretation in the movie. Number 5, the product placement in this movie, it almost made me want to turn it off. It was so bad within the first 5 minutes. You know, we get ads for FedEx, we get ads for Converse. We have Will Smith saying, you know, oh, these are the vintage 2003 Converse. They just stop, mate. Just shut up. Don't like it. Anyway, I did turn the movie off eventually. I think I got about over halfway, and then I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't have to watch this. This isn't a movie podcast. Anyway, let's move on from the robotics to something a bit more human, and that is tattoos. I've said it once, I'll say it again. If you buy tattoo books, they're a good money maker. We have sold a bundle of 5 tattoo books for $100. You know, you have a couple of options when it comes to tattoo books, tattoo magazines. You can either try and find singular art books of famous tattoo artists, or you can try and make bundles of tattoo magazines or tattoo inspiration books, tattoo flashcard magazines, that type of stuff. If you can find the right artist, you know, famous artists, you can make upwards of $100. There's some even selling for like $500 plus that I've seen on eBay. So the magazines, the inspiration books, they generally need to be bundled, but you can still get $100 plus for them. So yeah, keep an eye out for those tattoo books. Now next, we have come to the end of the Apple iBook G3 clamshell saga. You know, when I started this, I thought reselling was a pretty simple gig, right? Like you bought items low, you sell them high. Anybody can do it. It's not rocket science. It's not robotics. But look, if you're a dude that doesn't know too much, he's out of touch with reality, you can make a loss. And I'm afraid to tell you that we have made a loss. We put the G3 laptop up as an auction. Started out 99 cents, free postage. I picked it up. I spent $200 on it from Facebook Marketplace. The goal here was to have it repaired and sell for $1,000. I took it to my local Apple repair store. They told me the repairs were going to run upwards of $500. I decided against doing that. I paid them the $50 diagnosis fee. So we're in this for $250. It's an auction. Starting bid 99 cents, free shipping. Why did I do this? Because it's just a bit of fun, right? It's just a bit of fun. Now, the bids shot up pretty quick. It made me hopeful. They went up to $100 almost instantly. Then it went to $122.50. And then I started watching it. In the final 60 seconds, we went to $130. And then we settled at $152.50. But here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. We know that auctions, in most cases, they result in a lower final sale price. Like, I should have listed this for parts only for $200-300, and it would sell. We have the data that shows it would sell. I didn't do that because I wanted to have a bit of fun. I wanted to get it out of the house quickly. 7 days, I knew it would be gone. Because of that reason, we're making a loss. But the thing is, it was a gamble. Gambles don't always work out, but we did have a plan for it. If we could get it fixed cheaply, sell it for $1,000, it was a good plan. It just didn't work out. Now that is all I've got for you this week. Thank you again for tuning in. I really, really appreciate the fact that you are listening to all of my thrift store finds and all of my thrift store sales. I really appreciate it. Go to flipweekly.com if you want to see any photos. Go to social media if you want to see any videos. Thank you. I will see you next week. Matt signing off.
Flip, 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 flip. Flip Weekly.